Welcome to this space-themed episode on Nighttime this Friday. I'm your host, Patrick Previty, joined by Matthew Bracker as always. It's been an eventful week in college football and basketball, but we got to start with UCF moving to 8-0 in space games.
Hey, you know what they say, you're never lost in space. We're going to get this game started. It's Jakari Brown. Hey, arm is questionable, but he can run the ball. It's a touchdown for the Knights. We get started early. But R.J. Harvey is going to get it done too on the ground. He's going to cut through this defensive line and score a touchdown. But you know what's better than an R.J. Harvey touchdown?
Two of them?
Two of them. R.J. Harvey is going to get it again here. He's going to just run straight through him, and it's another touchdown for Harvey. He can't be contained. Now, he wouldn't be the only running back to get on the board for the Knights. It's Miles Montgomery, remember him? He's going to get on the board, 4 straight rushing touchdowns for UCF. They can't be stopped. Now, Arizona's going to put 6 on the board, but Dylan Risk, our newly minted starter, he says, let me get one. Evading pressure here, and he's going to lob it up to intro to sports business management legend, Randy Pittman. First touchdown on the year is a Hail Mary grab. Holy Toledo, the Riskler! He's fired up, and it's not even over yet. That's just the first half. Start of the third, handoff to R.J. Harvey. Have another hat trick on the day. Are you kidding me? 184 rushing yards on the game. You're looking at a future Denver Bronco. It's a party in space. They brought the aliens down. Now Arizona's going to put another touchdown on, but that's not going to phase Risk. He's going to let it fly. And it's Jacoby Jones who hauls it in. The Ohio transfer. He's been a fun guy to watch step up this year, and the Knights are playing on rookie mode. And, you know, it's nice to see Hudson out there after that injury scare, but UCF not leaving here without a 50-piece. Randy Pittman on the board again, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, big day for the tight end. But it's finally over. Arizona can rest. UCF ends their 5-game losing streak, 56-12. That's what Arizona gets for putting up that stupid billboard next to Lib.
UCF now 4-5 on the season. We welcome in UCF beat reporter Stephen Brown. Thank you for joining us. After UCF's dominant win this past week, we're going to review a list of statements and determine if they are out of this world or not, starting with this declaration. R.J. Harvey, who is now second all-time leading in rushing yards in UCF history, is the greatest running back, maybe even offensive player in UCF history.
Yeah, I do think that this statement is a little bit out of this world. You look at what Kevin Smith was able to accomplish here at UCF in just 3 years. It's unreal. Just over 4,600 yards for his career, 45 touchdowns. It's safe to say that Harvey will not be surpassing Smith in these categories, but what he's been able to do this year is still, impressive, but not as impressive as Smith. Harvey has just over 1,200 rushing yards, which is good for 3rd in the nation. 16 rushing touchdowns, 5th in the nation. These numbers are elite, but it's almost unfair to compare them to Kevin Smith. It looks like my college football 25 road to glory.
That is true. He had a pretty great career with the Knights. I'm going to have to agree, as much as I love Harvey, everyone knows how much I love Harvey, but that season was special. And also, Blake Bortles, could be said. It could be said. He had a pretty good career.
There are a lot of options in UCF history. Now moving to the passing game, Dylan Risk is not only the quarterback for the rest of this season, but also the QB for the rest of next season.
Yeah, I don't think that this statement is out of this world. You look at what Risk has done as only a redshirt freshman. In his limited sample size, he has outperformed all other 3 quarterbacks that have played for UCF this season. KJ Jefferson is a senior, so he'll be gone next year. E.J. Colson right now is a true freshman, so he's going to utilize his redshirt year, which could open up an avenue for him to play in the future. So that leaves UCF's only other option outside of the transfer portal with Jakari Brown. But I just think that Risk is the better option. We saw it in that wonderful voiceover from Matthew, how Risk is able to throw the deep ball so well with the Hail Mary, that deep ball to Jones, just adds another dimension to this offense that has been missing up to this point.
I agree. I do think it's a little early to call. It is Arizona, of course, but there's no denying that was the best passing performance on the whole season. He looked really good, the Riskler. But now with the Riskler starting to heat up, do you think that's actually going to prevent transfer quarterbacks from looking at UCF and going, hey, maybe I'll come over to this program?
Yeah, I do think that Risk might prevent certain quarterbacks from transferring here because of his performances. If it's a toss-up for a transfer quarterback between UCF or another school that may have a clearer path to being a starting quarterback, I do think that the transfer quarterback will look to have an easier path to being that starting quarterback. Like I said, Risk is only a redshirt freshman, so he has plenty of eligibility years left. So I do think that would turn off a transfer quarterback from coming to UCF.
So if transfer quarterbacks are getting turned off by coming into UCF, one of these guys is definitely gone. E.J. Colson or Ja'Curry Brown?
Yeah, so if it is between E.J. Colson or Ja'Curry Brown, I think I'd have to go with E.J. Colson. Like I mentioned before, he actually became the youngest quarterback to start a game for UCF this season. Now, he didn't play too many snaps after he got the start, but he's going to have his redshirt year, so he'll have, which could open up an avenue for him to start later in the future. I just don't think that Ja'Curry Brown will be able to take UCF where they want to go. You saw what he did in his 2 starting games against Iowa State and BYU. Less than 100 yards passing, 2 interceptions in both of those games. He just doesn't bring the balance to the offense that I think UCF needs to be able to lean on the running game like they want to. Now, with that being said, we saw in the highlights how our new offensive coordinator, Tim Harris Jr., kind of utilized him on the goal line to make defenses think twice before they commit to R.J. Harvey. So I think if we can, utilize him in that way going forward, I think that would be good for the offense. Just don't think he could be our starting quarterback and handle that load in the passing game.
I could see that. The way they played him in this game, it kind of reminded me of when Michigan was kind of doing the same thing with Alex Orji a little bit. So I could see that for sure. Now, Coach Gus, after this performance, has officially saved his job. What do you think?
I do think that statement is a little out of this world, and that is because I don't know if his job was really in question in the first place. I know the fan base has not been happy with his performance up to this point. I know we heard some chants to fire Gus in that BYU game, but I don't know if the higher-ups at UCF are ready to eat the $13.75 million it would cost to terminate Gus Malzahn's contract. Now, with that being said, if Gus Malzahn is able to make a bowl game this season, then his job security is very safe moving forward.
Well, if UCF wins this week, they're back up to 500, and if they beat Utah or West Virginia after that, then they will be bowl eligible. So we'll have to definitely see what ends up happening in the next coming games. Moving ahead, thank you, Stephen, for breaking it all down. We're now going to send it over to Jan Perez, ranking UCF Space jerseys from the past to the present.
Thanks, Patrick. Today I will be ranking UCF Space U game jerseys from the past 8 seasons. And give you guys my top 3. At number 3, 2022, inspired by the OG, simple is always better. All black helmet and jersey with blue numbers and lettering. Space U right over the numbers, right big across the chest. Very nice. Really nice details. Nike was definitely in their bag with this one. At number 2 comes 2017's the OG Space U game jerseys. They're an OG for a reason. Nice colors with a patch on the left side with galaxy print on the helmets. It's just chef's kiss. Classic. And again, Nike just knows how to make good jerseys. And at number 1, not just my favorite, I think everybody's favorite, 2023's baby blue jerseys. Gorgeous. White helmets, white silhouettes, white socks, white cleats. It just fit the baby blue perfectly. And again, simple is best. But even being as simple as it is, intricate details, rocket designs on the sides of the pants and a space runway on the shoulders. They just knew what they were doing. The prior year, my number 3 clearly had something cooking when they made the blue numbers and letters. They just needed to go all blue. They just needed to go a step further in the blueness. And they reached it, and they reached peak jersey. With that, those will be all my picks. Back to you, Patrick.
Thanks, Jan. Those 2023 Space U jerseys are the absolute best. Nothing is topping that. Now, leading into last week's Game of the Week matchup between Ohio State and Penn State, I compared James Franklin to a runt, the little brother of Michigan and Ohio State. But on Saturday, he got the chance to prove everybody wrong. Penn State welcomed in the Buckeyes to take the monkey off their back. To start the game, it looked like they were well on their way, up 10-0 after this Will Howard pick, Zion Tracy taking it back 31 yards out.
He's going to go, hey, I'm glad he didn't drop the ball. A lot of guys been doing that on their pick sixes.
Ensuing possession, Howard to Emeka Egbuka. Buckeyes showing a level of resilience we would come to see the entire afternoon. After Penn State 3 and out, OSU trying to get the first, but they come up well short. But there's a flag on the field, unsportsmanlike conduct. Later on in the drive, it is still alive, and so is Ohio State. Thriving, one might say at this point. Brandon Ennis catches that touchdown pass, and Ohio State flipped the momentum. Now look at here. Penn State trying to get points at the end of the half. This was ruled incomplete. An interception for Ohio State.
That is close to call. Yeah.
Now, that was overturned. Later on in the next half, nothing was going on. Ohio State gets a goal line stand and runs out the last 5 minutes of the game. Ohio State is now second in the college football playoff rankings. James Franklin and Penn State are now hoping for a rematch, and Franklin moves to 3-19 against AP top 10 teams at Penn State.
That's crazy. That is a crazy stat. Hey, still little brother.
Still the little brother. Still the runt.
Yeah. But what a good game. But you know what? We're going to get into one of the bigger upsets of the week. Texas Tech at Ohio State. Iowa State. We just had Ohio State.
Yeah, we did.
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
So we're going to get this game started. And this was a pretty fun quarterback duel. Texas Tech first drive of the game. They'll get it started here. Baron Morton finds his guy wide open. How did that happen? Josh Kelly on the board. Yeah, Iowa State is going to put up a field goal on the board, but Morton is going to take a brutal shot and still deliver the ball. He's just going to thug it out. Watch this. That'll set up a field goal for Texas Tech, but I think he's still feeling that hit because he's going to throw a pick. And great job by Iowa State DB Darian Porter. Morton would throw 2 picks on the day. Iowa State gets the ball, momentum on their side, and they would need it. Iowa State quarterback Rocco Beck, we know him all too well. He's going to scramble around, avoiding pressure, and he'll find Jaden Higgins right before halftime. What a grab. But hey, I got another grab for you. End of the third here. We're going to come back from the first half. Morton is going to lob it up, and this is blatant pass interference. But that's not going to stop him. Touchdown grab for Kelly. He is having a day. Iowa State ball coming up next here. They just are not going to get this guy down. Watch this. Almost takes a sack, and he just escapes like 3 of them. Dude gets tripped up by his own guy, and that is the game-winning touchdown, or so we think. Texas Tech is going to have a chance here in the final 2 minutes. This is a key 4th down, 4th and 7, and Morton, he's going to get it done. And they're going to move the chains. Now they're at the goal line. This is Wildcat, and they're going to get in under 20 seconds and take the lead 23-22. Now, Iowa State, they're going to try something at the very end here. One of these lateral plays. I don't really like laterals. Honestly, from what I've seen this year in football in whole, I feel like Hail Marys, they have a better shot of getting you the win over these lateral plays. But that is going to be all she wrote. Texas Tech would come into Iowa State's home and just upset them completely. It's 23-22. It was a tight game, but they pulled it out in the end.
Yeah, Iowa State now 4-1 in their conference. That Big 12, man, it's so tough to predict as every week passes by. But it's time for my favorite segment of the week. Let's go around college football, beginning with Texas A&M taking on South Carolina. South Carolina is a tough out for a lot of teams this year, and for Texas A&M, they ended up just giving this game away 1 week after winning the game of the week against LSU. This was rough. 44-20 is the ending score. South Carolina wins. Moving to Florida against Georgia. Florida has had a great start to this game. This is 5 minutes left in the half. DJ Lagway hurt his hamstring. He was out for the rest of the game, and Georgia didn't look back after that, putting it on Florida, winning by more than 2 scores.
That's a momentum changer right there.
Yep, Georgia kind of keeps their season alive, or their SEC season alive, I should say. Minnesota, Illinois. Minnesota is going to get a ranked win over number 24 Illinois. A lot of crazy stuff happening also in the Big Ten. I would say a lot of those teams in the middle there are very good. Minnesota wins 25-17. Vanderbilt, Auburn, Vandy, with 4 minutes left, this is a game. They win this 17-7.
That's a sleeper team right there. Vandy's going to be fun in a bowl game.
They're going bowling now. This is their 6th win. That's why they're on this. And that is such a huge win for the program. Now, Louisville, Clemson. Clemson, I've been high on them all year, but they are Clemsoning, which is now apparently an actual word that people say.
Yeah. I saw it in the dictionary the other day.
Yep, that's
just read dictionaries, yeah.
They lost 33-21 in that game. Now, SMU just absolutely putting it on Pitt, thinking that this would be a great ACC matchup. SMU had nothing of the sorts. They absolutely destroyed them start to finish. SMU now controls their own destiny to get to the ACC championship game.
I think they could do it.
K-State, Houston. K-State was waiting on that mistake all game last week against Kansas. They make their own at the very end against Houston. Houston, one of those bottom 25 teams in college football. They get a win, 24-19. They're actually playing pretty good football. Now, Miami, Duke. Miami.
I love Miami. You know I love Miami.
Look at how short this guy's pants are, first of all, who picked this ball off. But also, at the same time, Miami is just so absurdly up and down the entire
That's your biggest takeaway from the game, is his pants. That's your biggest takeaway from the game.
Oh, and Cam Ward is an amazing player.
There you go.
Yes.
That should have been said first, maybe, you think?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe he's not good enough to get any of our
man.
swords and shields, though, this week.
That is true. He's not. He did not get mine, at least. Jordan Watkins got mine. He had an insane day for Ole Miss. Just an outstanding performance here. You look at the stats. 8 catches, 254 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Unbelievable.
Well, I also chose a wide receiver for my sword, Eric Rivers of FIU. He had 11 receptions, 295 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
So I think that's pretty good as well.
Yeah, but not better than my guy.
295 yards, second most all year this year.
Okay.
Out of
5
anybody.
touchdowns, though. He instantly gets shot up to the top leaders of college football in touchdowns.
Rivers had 3 touchdowns of over 50 yards.
You know
Also,
what? Leave a comment. Leave a comment.
Honorable mention to the New Mexico rushers, their quarterback and their running back. They combined for 412 yards on the ground.
That is insane.
Their quarterback and their running back, Devin Dampier and Eli Sanders, they also had 5 touchdowns.
Looking like UCF out there.
Looking pretty good.
What do you know? But we're going to get into shields now, and I got the Ohio State corner, Davison. I always do this. Igbinosun. I'm so sorry if you're watching this show. I'm so sorry. It's been a long week, but he had a really great performance this week. You look at the stats here. He had 4 total tackles, 2 solo tackles and an interception. I know the stats don't really pop out, but he had a key clutch interception right before halftime. You know, clutch players make clutch plays. You know, don't always pop out in the box score.
I was a little bit behind on the voiceover, but yes, I was going to mention his name at the end of the first half. That was super clutch for Ohio State.
Did I say his name right?
I don't know. We'll see.
That's fair.
Mine is my shield is the linebacker from Washington, Carson Bruner, 12 tackles, 7 solo tackles, and 2 interceptions. They get the win over USC this past week. He was also named Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week.
Pretty good game.
Yeah. Moving on to some other news that happened this past week. On Tuesday, the College Football Playoff Committee joined the fun of college football, releasing their first rankings this season. And here they are. I don't think that you have any differences in your bracket compared to the actual college football
wait, let me see.
playoff committee bracket.
I have a couple.
You have a couple
big
gripes
one
with their bracket?
I have a big one because they have Georgia, you know, at number 2 in the 2nd position. I have Miami because I think Miami should be number 2 in the nation. I think they look really good. But yeah, this is the official bracket here from the committee. You see Oregon at the number 1 spot, right? And then we got Georgia number 2, Miami 3, BYU 4. Of course, BYU is not like 4th ranked in the nation, but as you know, the conference winners, the 4 highest conference winners take those spots, and then the 5th highest conference winner takes that 12th spot. That's why they got Boise State on there, and the rest sort of file in. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think there could be a situation where the Big 12 champion has maybe 1 or 2 losses and they get ranked under Boise State because those aren't the automatic 4 spots left for the Power 4 conferences.
Right.
It's just the highest ranked conference champions will get those top 4 seeds. So I think that that's something that's interesting to look at. My only differences have to do with the middle of the pack. It has to do with Tennessee, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Penn State. I have them practically all jumbled. I have them in that order specifically on my bracket. It's not like that in the actual college football playoff bracket, but mine is a little different. We'll have to see after this week's slate of games what the College Football Playoff Committee ends up deciding because there's a lot of other games that could end up shaking things up as time goes on. Now, moving into the game of the week, we have LSU and Alabama.
So I'm going to take Alabama in this game. I think that this, and I know that might be a little hot take, but I think this is a comeback game for Milroe. I think that this is a game they can take advantage of a lot of, parts of LSU. I'm just feeling an upset. Or I actually don't know who's favored in this game. I think it's LSU.
Well, Alabama's ranked higher. I think LSU, coming off that loss against Texas A&M a couple weeks ago, I think they'll come out ready to play. I think Brian Kelly will actually come out ready to coach, and LSU's got a great offensive line. I think that they will win the game against Alabama, and I've been doing pretty good on Game of the Week picks. Yeah. Justice Covert, producer, he was wrong last week, so he's wearing the chicken hat in the studio, but he's too chicken to actually turn on the studio cam and show it, but that is okay.
But we know. In our hearts, we know.
We know. Yeah. It is going to be a big week for the SEC as Georgia also takes on Ole Miss. We'll know a lot more about that conference after this Saturday. Coming up, we're talking men's hoops as well as UCF's huge win this past Monday. But first, Patrick DeLeon and Edgar Rodriguez are back for our weekly UCF soccer update.
So today we're talking about UCF men's soccer once again. Joining me at the table is Edgar Rodriguez. Edgar, these boys have been in pretty good form leading into this final stretch of the season, including a huge 4-0 win against South Carolina for senior night. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so if you were at the stadium, you would have witnessed Luca Dorado not only scores 40th or 41st, but he also bagged his 42nd goal as a UCF Knight. A hat trick on his senior farewell for the regular season, Patrick. It was unbelievable. The stadium went absolutely crazy for him. And you mentioned 4-0. Luca got 3, but Anderson Rosa getting his goal as well. During his farewell. It was an unbelievable occasion. And like we said, the schedule eased up for them and they took advantage of it. Finishing off the season strong at home bodes well for the playoffs.
And now Luca Dorado is the 5th all-time leading goal scorer for UCF men's soccer. Great form he's had heading into this SBC championship playoff part of the season that we're all super excited to see. What do you expect from them from that?
Yeah, look, definitely more positive, right? They went through a rough patch during the middle of the season. Like we said, schedule eased up. They took advantage of that. They finished the season away at Coastal Carolina. That is the only negative part, right? 0-4 away from home. That is not what you really want to see. But if they can get that off their back, win away at Coastal Carolina, who haven't had the best of seasons, that will definitely put them with a lot of momentum going to the Sun Belt playoffs.
Absolutely. And we're super excited to see how these boys do in the postseason. That's all we got for you. Back to you guys.
Death, taxes, and great stuff from Patrick DeLeon and Edgar Rodriguez, per usual. But now we shift into UCF basketball. Entering the season opener, they were just 5.5-point underdogs to number 13th ranked Texas A&M. And early on, it seemed like the Aggies would have their way. The fast break dunk by Keyshawn Hall was all the Knights had to show for in the beginning parts of the game. They'd start the night 1 of 14 from the floor and have 2 points in the first 7 minutes. But the shooting would get back on track. Jordan Ivy Curry, looking like Chef Curry with the 3. He was second in scoring for the game with 16 points. UCF hanging around 29 all at the intermission. Darius Johnson with the 3 to open the half. Just their second lead of the game. But Pharrell Payne bringing the pain. He led the Aggies with 15 points while adding 6 rebounds. A&M consistently staying up a few possessions by this point in the game. This deep 3 by Wade Taylor IV would extend the lead to 9, their largest lead since midway through the opening half. But that's the last we would hear from them. UCF with the ball now, 60-54. Keyshawn Hall gets the bucket and the foul. Here come the Knights. And then to tie it up, no good. But J.J. Taylor cleans it up in style. Texas A&M officially ice cold to this point. Not UCF though. Darius Johnson to Benny Williams for the dunk and the foul. A&M, they'd get some chances towards the end, but nothing would end up falling. UCF finishes the game on a 14-2 run, and their fans get the honor of the first court storm this season.
Insane. You just got to go to every game, I guess, because UCF is a basketball school.
Oh,
officially.
What a proclamation. Darius Johnson steps up in a big way, 24 points, 5 assists.
Yeah, that was a huge game. Darius Johnson was a guy last year who, I think actually it was my first appearance ever on Nighttime. I sang the praises of Darius Johnson, and now he's stepping up in a big way, and he needs to with these some of these injuries.
Wow. Humble brag there from Matthew Bracker.
A little, yeah.
Great. Now we welcome in Kathleen Moore and Andrew Greig to assess the expectations for this UCF team. Starting with you, Andrew, does UCF have a legitimate shot to compete in the Big 12 this season?
Yeah, so as we saw in the Texas A&M game, I think when we're playing our best basketball, we can compete with anybody. This is a Texas A&M game where we were missing our best player, Jalen Sellers, returning from last season, one of the best players in all of the Big 12. And we have 5 different former 4-stars coming to this team as transfers. And you highlighted them, J.J. Taylor, as well as Keyshawn Hall, who had an excellent game. We have a lot of potential on this team, and I think that we're in line to make a big push in the Big 12, and I think we can definitely be competitive this season.
One of the most competitive conferences, I think, in college basketball this year. But it's a definitely great win to kick off the next season. Last season, we were able to take down Kansas, which at the moment is the #1 ranked team in all of college basketball. I think we could definitely end up being a competitive team in the Big 12, but it's going to take a lot of dedication.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, a lot of big transfers this year coming to UCF. I want to shout out Jordan Ivy Curry. He was a spark plug for UTSA last year, putting up about 17 points per game. But we'll get to additions. Now, after this, upset against Texas A&M, do you think UCF will make March Madness?
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil too much in the first question, but March Madness is obviously the crown jewel of college basketball, and I think that UCF will be competitive enough to make it this season. We're coming off a season where we were a top 4 seed in the NIT tournament, and off a team where expectations weren't too high. It was our first season in the Big 12, but now with the adjustment to Big 12 conference play and just like out-of-conference games, Texas A&M becoming a big win on our schedule, defeating the #13 team in the nation. I think that we have definitely the potential to make the March Madness tournament, and I think that it'd almost be an underperformance if we don't make it because of how much talent is on this team currently.
Yeah, I would agree. We have a ton of stunners on the team this year. If we can keep being competitive and keep up this momentum that we had with this Texas A&M game and let it push us through the rest of the season, then I think that there's a great chance of us making March Madness.
I could definitely see that, and I know we talked about it a little bit, but to help us get to that point, what do you guys think? Who do you guys think is the biggest addition to this UCF team this season?
So if we're talking about big additions, we definitely have to talk about Keyshawn Big Guard Hall, as people call him. He is coming off a season at George Mason where he averaged over 16 points a game and 7 or over 8 rebounds per game. He is called Big Guard Hall because he's a 6'7" combo guard who can play at point guard or shooting guard. He's one of the better offensive players on this team, and he was one of our best players in the FGCU scrimmage. And last game, unfortunately, he was only able to get 10 points as he ran into early foul trouble and eventually ended up fouling out of the game. But I think that he is going to be one of our best players on the team along with Jalen Sellers and Darius Johnson.
Yeah, I'm actually going to piggyback off of the big difference reference and talk about the new center, Mustafa Kim. And this guy is an absolute unit. 7'2", 230-something pounds. I mean, this guy's massive. I think someone with his play style, who kind of bully people around the paint, definitely does not hurt our standing. So I feel like Kim is really going to step up this season and get some double-digit rebound games.
I agree. He reminds me a lot of Diallo from last year. He was a big player for us.
UCF will play Purdue Fort Wayne tonight and FAU on November 12th. Kathleen and Andrew are sticking with us, but the rest of the college basketball world also tipped off this week. Let's take a look at the top plays from around college basketball. Starting with number 5, this is freshman Will Riley. He broke the record for scoring in a debut for Illinois. 31 points, 26 in the second half as he went 5 of 6 for a 3. Next up, it's Matthew Cleveland saying, "Come here, son. Meat to meat, wall to wall." Putting his body on the line, bro. Oh my goodness gracious. Coming in at number 3, it's a free chance at the basket. Cohen Carr, he had about 3 dunks from this game that we could have chose. MSU ends up rolling. DePaul, Southern Indiana off the inbound from the other side of the court. Jake Meyer hits the 3. DePaul would win later on in double overtime. No, topping off the list at number 1, VJ Edgecombe makes a statement against nepotism, dunking on the coach's son in garbage time. Maybe the family business isn't for you, kid.
Yeah, that was tough. I saw that press conference. His teammates couldn't speak on it. You know, they don't want to lose their starting role. You know, they can't say nothing. That was brutal.
College basketball is great, so let's do the same thing over again really quick. Biggest takeaway from the opening round of the games?
Yeah, so if any big takeaways, it has to be the Gonzaga versus Baylor game, the game that you guys just showed. I think that was one of the biggest matchups of the opening night of college basketball. Number 6 going against number 8, and the fact what Gonzaga did to Baylor, I don't think anybody expected, winning by almost 40 points in their debut. Gonzaga brings in people like VJ Edgecombe, which was a 5-star recruit out of high school, as well as some other transfers, and they are just one of the better teams in college basketball, the number 8 team in the nation, and nobody was expecting them to be dismantled the way they were, especially a Big 12 team going out of a team out of the WCC. Gonzaga's challenge every season is the fact that they are extremely underrated because of the fact that they play in a smaller conference. And I think that the biggest takeaway for me is the fact that Gonzaga might be for real this year. Beating a Big 12 conference like they did in the opening game of the season is something to be said, and they definitely had the biggest win so far this season.
School and Texas, and also UCF taking on Texas A&M. That was awesome. But overall, I think people did a decent job with giving their rankings. I know I was really waiting on it with Patrick earlier this week about the AP poll coming out and like Alabama being so high, but the games kind of spoke for themselves, I would say.
Yeah, they didn't do a bad job with that poll. Yeah, but you know, we're going to get into our next question here. A lot of great freshmen in college basketball this season, but the one that we want to talk about with this one is Cooper Flagg. Obviously, we've heard all the news coming into this season, you know, undisputed #1 draft pick, all this stuff. In his Duke debut, he shot 6 for 15 with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Is Cooper Flagg the undisputed best player in college basketball like everyone is saying he is?
So I think it's definitely between him and RJ Davis coming out of the University of North Carolina, which it would be Duke and North Carolina battling it out for the #1 and #2 best players in the country. But RJ Davis is definitely one of the best point guards and just guards in general in the country this season. He's the only first-team All-American from last season to be returning to college basketball this season, which I think is big for his status as one of the best players in college basketball. But as you were saying, Cooper Flagg is just I think it can be said that he's the undisputed best player in college basketball. He didn't have a wow game in his first game of the season, but he did enough, and they were also playing the University of Maine, so he didn't need to do too much. For sure. Maine, the state which he actually hails from, but coming out of Montverde, he reclassed, so he's actually only 17 years old, and he doesn't turn 18 until December 6th. He's December 6th, 2006 is when he was born, which is kind of insane because 2006 it feels like so young for a college basketball player at this point. But yeah, 17-year-old coming out of Montverde last year, and he was just the undisputed best player in high school basketball. And even looking into, he was on the scout team for the Team USA, and people like LeBron James, Stephen Curry were raving about him. So I think he's the undisputed best player in college basketball.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Andrew on this time. I mean, we all know what the Duke system is able to do for young stars. I mean, right now Duke has 24 active players in the NBA. The new head coach of Duke, he comes from the Coach K system, and what they're able to do for these players and turn them into stars is very insane. You have a 5-star that comes in from high school, and they just crush the team, and then they go to the league. That's kind of what it's looking like for Cooper Flagg right now. The future is very bright for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, like you said, Duke is a factory for NBA talent. So we'll see how how that goes. But we're going to get into some more conference play type questions here. What conference do you think is the best in total college basketball?
I think you have to go with the Big 12 for the best conference in all of college basketball. The Big 12 has 5 of the top 10 AP top 10 teams this season, featuring teams like Houston, Arizona, Baylor, etc. There are, and obviously Kansas, the #1 team in the nation currently. So obviously they have like some of the best teams in the nation, 6 of the top 25 teams in the nation. And you have teams like UCF that are kind of on the edge, teetering on the edge. They also sent 8 teams, which is a record for the Big 12, to the March Madness last year, as well as 3 teams who competed in the NIT tournament from top to bottom. This just looks like one of the best conference in college basketball. And I think the only conference that is even relatively close is the ACC, maybe the SEC at this point, but the Big 12 is just undisputed right now.
I don't think they're going to compete with the Big 12 or the ACC vertically at all. It's definitely interesting to see that kind of shake-up that the SEC is so high.
Totally.
One more thing about the Big 12, 15 out of the 16 teams won their opening game, which I think just highlights how good this conference is going to be for the future.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Big 12, I do think, is the best conference in all of college basketball, but SEC might have some sleeper teams.
Yeah, there's a lot of great basketball being played, but will any of them be able to knock off UConn? Will they be able to get their three-peat? Andrew.
Yeah, UConn is obviously one of the best teams in the nation, but I don't think that they will be able to three-peat. I think that winning college March Madness is one of the hardest tournaments, if not the hardest tournament in all of sports, and going for a three-peat is just unheard of, and I don't think that UConn will be the team to do it. They've lost 4 out of their top 5 leading scorers from last season, and they brought in a good transfer and recruiting class, but I don't think that'll be enough to have them overcome teams like Kansas and Alabama, who are the top 2 teams in the nation at this point. I think that UConn will fall short of a three-peat this season.
So hard to overcome that 3 years in a row. Not to say that UConn's also not going to compete this year. The team is obviously on the younger side, and as Andrew mentioned, they lost a lot of their leading scorers. And Banner is a sensational college coach, but I think that someone else is going to step up this season.
A lot of great stuff going on in college basketball. Thank you so much, Kathleen and Andrew, for joining us to talk all about it. Thank you to Edgar Rodriguez and Patrick DeLeon for talking UCF soccer, Jan for ranking the space jerseys, and Stephen Brown for talking UCF football. For my co-host, Matthew Bracker, I'm Patrick Previty, and this has been the Space Show edition of Nighttime. We will see you guys the same time next week.